Hari Om. Karma Yoga. We are now going through the chapter Sankhya Yoga, the second chapter, where Bhagavan Krishna talks more about the Karma Yoga part in these sessions, in these verses, especially to 47, 48, 49, 50. So that's what we have seen in the last few sessions. So Karma Yoga is a way that will enable us to perform the duties, and that way is very superior, because perform the duties with detachment from the results. Doesn't mean that we don't need to dedicate. It has to be with the utmost dedication of the actions, and that dedication has to be to a higher ideal. So Karma Yoga is a way of performing one's own duties with detachment from the results, and at the same time dedicating the actions to a higher ideal with Bhagavat Samarpana. So the essence is mainly a work without selfish attachment and without being disturbed by the success and failure that could happen. So these verses, if you recollect all, the verse number 47, Karmanyevadhikaraste ma bhaleshu kadachana ma karma phala hedurbhu ma te sangostu akarmani yogastha kuru karmani sangam tyaktva dhananjaya siddhya siddhyo samo bhutva samatvam yoga uchyade durena hyaparam karma buddhi yogad dhananjaya buddhau sharanamanyucha kripana phalahedava buddhi yukto jahatiha ubhe sukrita dushkrude tasmat yogaya ujjasva yoga karmasu kausha karmanyevadhikaraste ma bhaleshu kadachana ma karma phalahedurphu ma te sangostu akarma. So you have the right to do the actions. The capability or power of execution is in your hands, but not to the fruits of actions. So don't see yourself as the cause of what? Cause of the outputs. You see yourself as the cause for doing the action, and you don't get attached with the outputs. And you should not be in a situation like don't do the action. So don't get attached to the output of the actions, and also don't get attached to a state of inaction. And how you should do the actions? You do your duty established in yoga. Samatvam yoga uchyade. So you do your duty established in yoga, and treat success and failure alike. So this is the evenness of mind, and this is defined as yoga by Bhagavan Krishna here. And why you should be doing in a selfless way? Because work done with a selfish motive is very inferior. They are called as kripana. Like they are petty people. So you seek refuge in the intelligence of equanimity, because the kripanas, they are always attached to the results. And what happens when they are attached to the results? The quality of execution will go down. So what they will do at the end of the day is they all will do the mediocre actions. So how will you excel in the path of executing the karma? Right? This is very logical also. And Bhagavan in the 50th verse says, Buddhi yukto jahadiha ubhe suvarta dushkride tasmad yogaya vijjasva yoga karma sugausha. So who is who is a karma yogi? The real karma yogi is a person with equanimity. We defined yoga as what? The evenness of mind is yoga. So a person with equanimity will abandon both good and bad. Right? Because why abandon both good and bad? The karma will always create the stains, the kalanga, ragam, dvesham, kartrutvam, bhoktrutvam, attachment, aversion, enjoyership, doership. All these are the karmic stains coming. And if you cling with good and bad, what happens is basically the karma will ultimately bind us. So who is a real yogi? The one who is having skill to do the action. What is the skill? Skill to operate with the mind that is having equanimity, and not to stain, not to gain, not to collect the stains of the karma. Those stains are raga, dvesha, kartrutvam, bhoktrutvam. And the one who has got this superior skill, this is the skill, that is where karmasu kaushala. There is also a skill needed when you do the action. See, otherwise also, if you are too much worried about the outputs, what happens is that anxiety will come. What happens when the anxiety prevails? Anxiety will reduce the performance. So when we are not attaching to the results, or thinking or overthinking or worrying about those results, what happens is basically the anxiety will come down. It will also reduce the stress. It will reduce the burnout. It will also reduce the depression. If you don't have an expectation, then where is the question of depression? Where is the question of burnout? Where is the question of stress? Gandhiji said, full effort is full victory. If you put the sincere effort, that is called as the full victory. So how you can put full effort? When you are in the present, when you are not having anxiety, when you are not having worry about the results, because you are in the present, you are putting the full effort, you are sincere, you are selflessly doing. That is where one can put the full efforts. In line to what Mahatma Gandhi said, our Edison, who invented these light bulbs, you all know that story, right? He failed many times. And what Edison said, after 1,000 failed attempts at making a light bulb, Edison said, I did not fail. I just found 1,000 different ways that won't work. So failed attempts where Edison was giving the full effort, and those failures were, the learnings for the Edison. Ultimately, those different ways won't work. That is where Edison came up with a different way and finally succeeded. So here Karma Yoga stresses that you be detached. But it is not saying, Bhagavan is not saying you run away from the responsibility. You be detached with the responsibility. You do, but don't get attached. And with what? Equanimity. You be calm in success or failure. Yoga Karma Sukha, excellence in work, skill in action. What is that skill? Not accumulating the kalangam. Ragadvesha, Kartrutva, Bhoktrutva. You also have the resilience. Right? As Edison mentioned, failure cannot define my success. So one will always get that resilience when you are doing in the way of Karma Yoga. So those failures cannot define me as a person. And what? Again, the Samatvam Yoga Uchade, and you be a Yogastan. This is the inner freedom. Inner freedom is what? Inner freedom is not enslaved to the results. If you are enslaved, if you are bounded, then where is the freedom? So inner freedom is all about not getting enslaved to the results. Whether somebody praises you or criticizes you, right? You are not enslaved to those criticisms, whether it is, praising or criticizing. So inner freedom is what? Inner freedom is basically with the inner energy without getting attached, in a calm mind, with a calm mind, without accumulating the stains of the karma. Even if failure happens, you are not affected. This is the inner freedom. And skill in action. What is that? Acting with the remembrance of the God, because that is where it is called as submitting or surrendering to a higher ideal. Right? So this is basically the skill. When we say skill in action, not only just to avoid the karma kalangam, but at the same time always acting with the remembrance of the God. So there is no question of accumulation of the kalangam. So Yoga Karma Sukha Kaushalam is the art of turning work into worship with the humility. The dimension of humility and bhakti both are implied here in these verses. I am not the doer. That Lord is the doer. And I do the work for that Lord. That is where love in action comes automatically, because there is no selfish motive. It is a selfless action. So that is where humility and love in action will automatically come. And on the top of all these things, the fearlessness happening there. Nothing to lose. I do this job for a higher ideal. I am not the doer. God is the doer. So then why I should be afraid of, losing, or even if I succeed, I don't have any fear there, because I am driven by the Lord. So Karma Yoga is basically, I would say, a bhakti infused. There is no mention of bhakti here, but bhakti infused in our action. Bhakti, that term is sufficient. Everything comes here. Whatever we told: detachment, equanimity, resilience, inner freedom, skill, humility, love, everything, fearlessness. All are implied when we say Karma Yoga is bhakti infused. So we can say Karma Yoga plus bhakti is implied, is called as Nishkama Karmam. So in this journey, what is needed is the directions given by a guru. Guru is very much essential here. Bhagavan as a guru is advising us to put the self-effort. So surrendering in me, and you put your effort. Surrender and your effort. You be in present. When we say when you be in the present, you put your self effort honestly, sincerely, because that is very crucial. Take refuge in me and you put the self effort. So when Bhagavan says you take refuge, for a mind, for a jiva to take a refuge, that grace has to happen. That kripa has to happen. Are you all with me? So that grace has to happen when Bhagavan says you take refuge in me and put the self-effort. For that mind to take refuge, that grace has to come from the God. And when we say self-effort, that is the sincere application of the jiva once the grace starts flowing. So once the grace starts flowing and when we are sincere in doing the things, the karma yoga itself will become the ultimate goal of jnana prapti. Bhagavan says in the next chapter, in the 4th chapter, Dividohi, not Dividohi, Logesmin, in the 3rd chapter, in the Karma Yoga, Logesmin, Divida Dishta Pura Prokta Mayanaka, Jnana Yogena Sankyanam, Karma Yogena Yogina. There are only 2 paths, Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga. So, a Karma Yogi can become a Jnani. So, you take refuge. For that, let me grace you, let me bless you. Then you do the sincere application of the work. You take work as worship. And what is the benefit? That will lead to the ultimate realization, your own inner realization. You will come to me. You will realize me. The one who is giving the grace. Who is that Lord? And where is that Lord? Lord is within us as the Antaryami. So a guru only can show this. Because what happens when we are in the presence of a guru? Guru transmits his knowledge. The knowledge transmission and transformation both are happening there. Knowledge transmission and transformation. There is no transformation of the knowledge, but transformation happens in the jiva. So when you say knowledge transmission, it is a direct oral experiential. Sravanam, Mananam, listening, observation. So when we are in the company of a guru, you are listening to the guru, you are observing the guru, and if you see the lineage, the Gurukula Sampradaya, the practical engagement is happening. Shishya is with the guru. Always in the mode of, getting direct oral experiential knowledge. Listening, going back and doing the observation. Also practical engagement happens there, right? So it's a holistic learning. And at the same time, the dimensions of ethics also there. Dharmam is there. Dharmika pravarti. Not only confining there. Again, the other dimensions that will enrich the knowledge. That includes the artistic, spiritual, everything. So the Gurukula Sampradaya, if you see, it's a personalized mentorship where the character formation happens. That's why I mentioned knowledge transmission and transformation happening. Transformation in all aspects, not only the gaining of the knowledge, even the intellectual growth, capability. When I say transmission, the transformation, the discipline, the dedication, the rich values, including humility, obedience. Also, the system that helps the Shishya to create and retain the core values. Right? So, Nisargadatta Maharaj affirms that the outer guru, so when we say guru, you may think that always, the guru is a Vyakti. No problem. Let us consider Guru as an external source. The outer Guru, what the outer Guru do? The outer Guru basically gives the instruction. Correct. And the real Kripa. Real Kripa is basically what? That has to come to the Shishya. And where the transformation happens in that Jiva who has to do the application. That Jiva should, that Shishya should do. So the outer Guru is just a trigger. Outer Guru may enable a transfer, but the real transformation happens with him. In Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavan Krishna says to Uddhava, Atmano Guru Atmaiva Purishasya Visheshadaha Yat Pratyaksha Anumanabhyam Shreyosa Avanuvindyade. See, the outer Guru will trigger. Right? But what happens? What should happen ultimately? The disciple should create that intelligence, that energy, which will lead to the ultimate transformation, so called as the realization. So, Karma Yogam, what we need to understand, I also mentioned about the Raga, Dvesha, Kartrutva, Bhoktrutvam, these kalangams, these impurities that one will gain when the karma is executed. There is a term libido, or basically in psychology says or defines this term as basically the broader psychic energy, right? The broader psychic energy that will create an overall motivation in any individual. If you see the psychologist or the famous psychologist, if you see Freud or Jung, according to them, this libido is basically the life instincts. So let's now come to Vedanta, which is different from the definition that psychology gives. It's basically the pressure that comes in an individual due to the past actions. Whatever we have executed in the past, the pressure, when I say the pressure, the tendency to repeat, that is called as vasana, right? If I have an urge, if that is there, that is stored in me, again and again I will, what is the right word? There comes a tendency in me to do that again. So that is why I said the pressure. The tendency to repeat is called as vasana. So what is vasana? Vasana, we can say this is a kind of a flavor or a fragrance, right? The flavor of or a fragrance of what we have done, what we have thought, whatever we think, do. See, they all will leave impression on us. So when that impression is created, what happens is basically there comes a pressure on us to repeat those things, whatever we have done. That is where it's very clear in the Karma Yoga Pathati. Don't have attachment to the results, and also don't gather the stains, because if we gather the stains, what happens is these impressions will get stored, and there comes a pressure in us to repeat those impressions. Let me simplify it. If we are having the habit of drinking tea in the morning, and maybe say 6 to 7 morning time we have the habit of drinking tea, whether our mind needs a watch next day, Or if you miss that morning tea, you will get restless. Am I right? I've seen people saying, I'm getting a headache because I did not drink tea. So now my question is the tea a problem? Is the tea is saying that, yeah, you come, please drink me, drink me, drink me? Who is having this issue? Because our mind is hardwired. When I say hardwired, these impressions are deep rooted. The vasanas are there. So Bhagavan says one simple thing. If we have those impressions stored, these impressions will take away our freedom to think of anything original. Are you all with me? When we do the karma, these impressions will come. And if we gather these impressions, what will happen is our original thinking will get deteriorated. These impressions will take away our freedom to think anything original. Because this samskaram will get formed. So if you operate on that samskaram or on that vasanas, what happens is basically our thinking will also be hardwired. That will kill our creativity. That stops the freedom to think freely or any new idea. It will not come if we have this impression stored. So we need to eliminate these past impressions or pressures. Now this mind is always colored by the past impressions. So what we have to do? You use karma yoga as a way to clean your mind. Bhagavan says cleanse the mind through karma yogam. How? Don't get accumulate these vasanas, because that will create a problem, that will stop your freedom, that will kill the creativity to have any original thinking. So you take this as an opportunity to cleanse the mind. Karma yoga as a way to clean the mind, not as a way to do the karma infinite times. No. So that is where Bhagavan says, don't think too much on outcomes. Don't get attached to the stains that karma creates. And make sure that your mind operates without vasanas. Because mind will always try to cling into the past. If these vasanas are there, mind will never fly into the new areas. Mind will never allow us to think into the new possibilities. So once the vasanas are reduced, what happens is basically the andakarana shuddhi. That is where the mind becomes capable to become meditative. Or we can say meditation worthy mind has to come when you do the karma yogam. You take this war as an avenue to clean your mind, for enriching yourself, for uplifting your spiritual progress. So that's where Bhagavan says here, use this karma yogam as the engine for self-unfoldment. Now, hey Arjuna, the jiva is now completely affected due to the conditionings of the body, mind, intellect, vasana, etc. Now, your mind is avidya krita. It's completely clouded. The real I, you are missing that. The real I is the Atma. That Atma is Nitya Muktam. In the initial part of the second chapter, we have seen Nitya Muktam, and it is always pure, Nitya Pavitram, ever pure. But the jiva is now affected due to the upadhi. That is where the upadhi dosham comes. The jiva, the mind, has superimposed all the wrong identities, all the superimposition of the wrong identities happened on the real self, the real true nature. The mind has created this, superimposed identities. Tattvamasi, you are the embodiment of the Brahman. Especially when we celebrate Ganesha Chaturthi. You all might have participated in this festival, Ganesha Chaturthi or Vinayaka Chaturthi. In the Atharva Shirsha Upanishad, Bhagavan Ganeshan is mentioned as Tumeva Pratyaksham Tattvamasi. Tumeva Pratyaksham Tattvamasi. Tvam Sakshad Atmasi Nityam Ridam Vachmi Satyam Vachmi. You are the embodiment of timeless wisdom. You are the Pratyaksha Tattvamasi Tattvam. And you are the Sakshad Atmasi Nityam, that is always Satyam, that cannot be changed. You are my Andaryami. You are the source of knowledge and bliss. In the other version, we can see Tvam Jnanamayo Vijnanamayosi. Tum Sakshat Atmasi Nityam Radam Vachmi Satyam Vachmi. And you are the, real source, or you are the remover of obstacles. Tvam Sarvam Khalvidam Brahmasi. You are the source of knowledge, you are the source of bliss. Tvam Jnanamayo Vijnanamayosi. Tvam Sarvam Khalvidam Brahmasi. Means what? You are the one who will kill the ego of the mind. When we say you are the remover of obstacles, you are the one who gives this jnanam to the mind. So when the jnanam comes into the mind, we act without attachment. We offer karma to the Supreme. And this surrender only will give strength. This surrender will give the profound strength. This surrender only will give the mental strength for equanimity. That's what Bhagavan says here. Samatvam Yoga Uchyate. In the other Shirsham, Ganesha is mentioned again. Tvam Buddhi Jnana Surubha. You are the embodiment of intelligence and wisdom. So, with that, when you invoke, you offer the action to that God. So that is where bhakti is implied here. You cannot offer the action without that bhakti to that higher idea. So offer action with bhakti, it will automatically become karma yoga. The real I, that is what? The Atma Tattvam, the changeless among the changing, including the changing objects of body, mind, intellect, senses. Where these things derive the Chetana, the real energy from where? From the Atma, which is Nityam. So, all beings that seems to be conscious and living derive the energy or this dynamism from the self, the Atma, the real life of the life. And that Atma is the embodiment of peace, embodiment of happiness, and it is our true nature. Our problem is basically we are now struggling more and more to see or find happiness and peace from the outside world. So what is happening? we are obstructing ourselves because we will not get those things from outside. That's what Bhagavan says in the 6th chapter. You only can uplift you. Hey Arjuna, uddharet atmanatmanam na atmanam avsadayet. Atmaiva hyatmano bandhur atmaiva ruburatman. See, the mind that follows the command of your higher nature, here when Bhagavan says manasa, in this case, the mind that follows the command of your higher nature becomes your true friend. Bandhu. Whereas the mind that jumps according to the changing moods, the mind jumping with the external things or resonating with the external things, that mind will trap you and that mind becomes your greatest enemy, Rivu. But by nature, the mind is emotional and instinct driven. So that is where one has to do the true integration of the emotional mind and rational intellect. That we have seen in the 41st verse, Vyavasayatmiya Buddhi, Bhagavan says that. Intuitive intelligence, Vaisharadi Buddhi. So it is very important, this Karma Yogam, what Bhagavan says is basically, it is the real science for mental discipline. So our mind is just the medium of reflecting that consciousness. We are the real consciousness. And the real issue is where? The real issue is in the reflecting medium, so called as the mind. Where is the freedom? The freedom is within us. The true freedom is basically what? Understand the reflecting medium, this mind, and transcend the limitation of the mind, transcend the limitation of the body, transcend the limitation of intellect, to break through the layers of false identification and rise above all limitations and rediscover or recognize one's own infinite, blissful, divine nature. So what is the tool here? Karma Yoga was the tool. Self-knowledge is the essence that Bhagavan is saying in these verses. He is the tool to live. Karma Yoga was a tool to live in this world. And the real freedom is what? Real freedom is not having bondage, not having limitation, not looking or wanting for desires. That's what we have seen in these verses, verse number 47, 48, 49, 50. Verse number 51. Karmajam buddhi yuktahi phalam tyaktva manishinaha janma bandha vinirmukta padam gachandhyanamayam. Karmajam buddhi yuktahi phalam tyaktva manishinaha janma bandha vinirmuktaha padam gachandhyanamayam. Padam gachanti anamayam. So the wise endowed with the buddhi yogam, Bhagavan says yogam as the buddhi yogam, the wise endowed with buddhi yogam of right understanding, bhalam tyaktva manishana, they abandon the fruits born of action, meaning what? Attachment to the results, and they are freed from the bondage of birth and right? Phalam tyakta manishana janma bandha vinirmukta. Okay, they are freed from the bondage of birth and they attain supreme state that is free from all sorrows. Karmajam buddhi yukta hi phalam tyaktva manishina Janma Bandha Vinirmukta Padam Gachanti Anamayam. They are free from all afflictions. Who are free from all afflictions? One who maintains the continuous Ishvara Buddhi. The one who maintains the continuous connect with the higher ideal while doing the karmam will be free from all afflictions. They become free from the bondages of karma, bhala, buddhi through antakarana shuddhi. That is where Bhagavan says, you take karma yoga as a mechanism to uplift yourself. You enable karma yoga as a mechanism for antakarana shuddhi. And what is the reason for doing antakarana shuddhi? Ultimately, you will reach the state of mukti. Only two ways are there. Karma yoga, right? Jnana yogena sankhyanam karma yogena yogina. So you use this, you take this karma yoga as a great opportunity to reduce the unwanted outcome oriented thoughts and reduce the stains born out of the karma. Reduce the stains meaning you don't gather any stains born out of the karma, because those vasanas will kill the original thinking or creativity. So use this karma yoga as the quality improvement procedure. Improve the quality of your thoughts. Shuddhi in mind. And you understand that this liberation is here. When you do the things, the liberation is here itself. Ihaiva. Because you are not preoccupying or clinging to the results of the outcomes. So you otherwise also you are operating with a liberated mind. You operate with the state of ease. If you are thinking about the outputs, if you are thinking or if you are gathering the stains, then you are in the state of disease. So what is the real reward out of the karma yoga is freedom plus mastery. What is the mastery? Mastery is not to gather the stains. Mastery is to operate with equanimity. And what is the real reward? Real reward is basically the inner freedom and mastery to live in this world without without allowing the karmic bonds to control us. When I say karmic bonds, the cycle of birth and death. Janma bandha vinirmukta padam gachanti anamayam. So that is the only way to liberate us from suffering. Equanimity of the mind, samatvam. Maintain steadfast state of mind regardless of success, failure, gain, loss. Use this karma yoga as the purification mechanism of the mind. And what will happen once the mind is purified? It will automatically lead to the self-realization. So the intellect aligned with wisdom and detachment allows us to transcend the worldly sufferings and attain freedom. What is that? The intellect, Vyavasayatmiya Buddhi, aligned with the wisdom and detachment, allows us to transcend the worldly pains. And what is the end goal? Attain freedom. Is that the outer freedom? No. Outer freedom, we don't have a control. Practical freedom is what? Practical freedom is the presence of inner clarity and strength. For what? To choose your path, express your true self, and above all, undisturbed by obstacles and compulsions. At the same time, we honor the others around us. What is the practical freedom? The inner clarity and strength. Expressing your true self, remain undisturbed, at the same time honor others around us. So this is ease. When I say ease, operate with ease, otherwise you will end up in disease. So ease is basically, Bhagavan says, you use karma yoga as a prevention, or karma yoga was a way to come out of the samsara dukkham. And if you just do karmam, it will put you in disease. Outcome is going to be a disease if you are just a karmi. Instead of that, you become a karma yogi. You be at ease. You be in harmony. You be in the journey of increased awareness. You be in the state of the inner harmony. You should not be in the state of disturbance. That is what verse number 51 says. Verse number 52. Yada te moha kalilam buddhir vyeditarishyati tada gandasi nirvedam srodavyasya srutasya cha. So, yada te moha kalilam buddhi vyeditarishyati tata gandasi nirvedam srodavyasya srutasya cha. So when your intellect crosses beyond the tangle of delusions, that is what is called as moha kalilam. The misapprehension, basically, what is misapprehension? The one that deludes you that the ego is the real I. So, when you overcome that misapprehension of the ego that creates the superimposed feeling that the ego is the I, with knowledge, once you come out of that, for such a person, for such a realized soul, for such a person, what happens is there is indifference to things heard and those yet to be heard. See here, there is moha kalilam vyeditarishyat. Okay, so where the mind becomes impure and creates the confusion about the self and non-self. This is basically called as the Vishamasthiti. What is Vishamasthiti? When the mind becomes impure and creates the confusion about the self and true non-self. When I say what is real, what is not real, what is permanent, what is not permanent. So where it happens, and in an impure mind it happens. And this delusion is due to what? The absence of vivekam. Nitya, anitya vastu vivekam, when it is not there, that is called as the deluded state, absence of vivekam. Or we can say it's avivekam. Avivekam is basically what? Avivekam is basically drifting our identity from the self to the objects. Self to non-self is called as avivekam. So when that state happens, basically the delusion is also happening. Because you are deluded. You are now positioning your true self as something that is driven by the objects. Basically, you identify yourself with the Vishaya Bandha. Then, the moment you identify yourself with the external objects, it is very clear. External objects cannot give complete peace and happiness. It is always mixed with sorrows. So that is where the element of dukkha mishrudatvam comes. Dukkha mishrudatvam meaning the mix of good and bad, because you are now with the world. So it is quite obvious that if you are mixed with the sorrows, you will also have the bondage. Bandhagaratvam will also come there. It's quite obvious. And also very, very obvious that you cannot see perfection, you cannot get perfection from the objects. There comes the apurnata, the incompleteness. So dukkha mishrudatvam, bandhakaratvam, and apurnata. This is the avivekam. So how to bring vivekam? Train your mind. So now my question is, who should get the freedom here? The real nature is always free. So the reflected medium, or the medium called as mind, is the problem maker here. So where the liberation should come? The liberation is needed for the mind. Because the mind is always in the state of bondage. Because mind identified the self with the objects and created this bondage. So where the liberation should happen? The liberation should happen in the mind. In the Amrita Bindu Upanishad, the verse is Manohi Dividam Proktam Shuddham cha Ashuddham evacha Ashuddham Kama Samyuktam Shuddham Kama Vivarjitam. The mind is always a kind of a dual nature. But the possibilities are in two dimensions. There is a possibility to turn inward and liberate. The other possibility is go outward and be in the bondage. Practically, if you see knife that we use, knife can be used to cut the fruits. We can eat the fruits. At the same time, knife can also be used to harm us, right? Harm ourselves. So the mind, the same equipment can be turned inward for liberation as well as keep outward towards bondage. So that is where Shuddham cha Ashuddham, impure mind is Ashuddham, dominated by the desires, ego, cravings. That impure mind, Ashuddha mind, is called as the restless mind. Whereas the pure mind is what? Pure mind is purified through the self-discipline, detachment, knowledge that will lead us to freedom. That's what Bhagavan says in the Gita, Uddhared Atmanatman. Again, go back to that verse. So, desires, ego, comparisons, etc. create anxiety, stress, bondage. Disciplined and content mind creates clarity, focus, and joy. Vedade moha kalilam. Moham is basically the dirt. What is the, how moham is defined here? It is the seed of inner delusion. When we say the seed of inner delusion, that delusion will kill all the original thinking. That moham will close the possibility, all possibilities from within. Because always attached with the world. In another way, we can say the anyabhinivesha, identifying the true self with other things. So when you identify the self with the world, what happens is basically it will start looking the peace, happiness from those things. Whereas when the buddhi, when the mind, in this case, when the mind becomes pure, it starts looking behind its own existence. What is that behind its own existence? It is the self, which is beyond the capability of the mind. So here the buddhi identifies itself as the bodham, the consciousness. In Nirvana Shatkam, Bhagavad says the first verses, Mano buddhya hankara chitta ninaham nacha shrotra jihve nacha krana netre nacha vyoma bhumir na tejo na vayu chidananda rupa shivoham shivoham. You cannot be the desire, you cannot be the manasa, buddhi, chitta, ahankara. So here, memory and imagination, they are not the real self. See here, it says, vididam nirvedam Srodavyasya Sudasya. Right. So, known and heard, or known or heard, is called Vididam. Not known or not heard is Avididam. So, the real self is neither the known nor the unknown. The real self is who? The real self is the knower. Known is the past. Whatever you know, you already have gained is the past. Unknown is the future. The one who knows the past and future is the knower. That is the self. That is the truth. That exists in every moment. That exists in us as the awareness. So, Srodavyam, Srudam, all are at the mental plane. They are at the thinking plane. They are at the plane of ego. So one has to go beyond the state of, one has to cross the moha. So when there is no moham, then there is no shoka. Verse number 53. Sruti vipradipannate yada astyasya nischala samadha vachala buddhi tada yogam avapsyasi. Sruti vipradipannate yada sthyasyadi nischala samadho achala buddhi tada yogam avapsyasi. When your mind no longer disturbed by the contradictory teachings. Here it's Sruti Pradipanna. So when the mind is not disturbed by the contradictory teachings or the confusions, the mind will stand firm and steady in meditation, the samadhi sthiti. So then you will attain the state of yoga. Basically it says from the divergent mind to convergent mind, the nischala sthiti of the mind. When you say from the limited consciousness to the expanded consciousness, that is where it's called as the capability to grow. So in this context we need to understand that the karma kandam is the purva bhagam of the Vedam and jnana kandam is the later part of the Vedam. Right? So Karma Kandam deals with the rites, Vedic rites, right? There, Karma Kandam says everything: goals, methods to attain the goals, etc. Right? Even if you see the Karma Kandam of the Veda, it explains the concept of birth, how a jiva gets conceived, how a body gets conceived, conception to death. Everything is mentioned in the Karma Kanda. And again, please, we need to understand that the goals, methods to attain those goals, etc. Right? And the Jnana Kandam is the real sthiti that one has to reach, right? The state of expanded consciousness is basically the Andakarana Shuddhi. That only will lead to the Mukti, that will only lead to the inner freedom. So here the term Vipradivanna, confusion or the distractions in the mind due to the non-understanding. When we say confusions or distractions, the multiplicity, because we all deal with multiplicity in life. So the mind will try to stereotype those multiplicity. The stereotyped or the assumed personality. So that is where the mind is in the state of confusion. So don't get stuck. Get unstuck from the chaos of conflict. That happens due to the multiplicity or the noises around us. Let go of all confusions from all these external sources which are endless. You find steadiness and peace within. So here, the forest of delusion, this is the right term we can bring here. When you are inside a forest, please tell me how easy is to navigate. How will you go forward? Is it that easy? It is not that easy. Because everywhere you see a lot of similar things. That is where conflicting advices, multiplicity, noisy options, all those things are there. So this is basically we are in the forest of delusion. What we have to do, we have to cross the forest of delusion. How knowledge should conquer the ignorance. That knowledge only will have the power to overcome the ignorance of the mind and make the mind subside in the truth. Adhishtanam. That is what Bhagavan says. Very, very profound verses 47 to 53 sets the base for the Karma Yoga. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamadachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.